Welcome to True Echo, where real stories resonate louder than fiction. Tonight's story unfolds in an upscale southern restaurant where racism, arrogance, and quiet dignity clash in a moment that shook everyone watching. A black man, humiliated by a waitress, simply asked to use the restroom. What she didn't know. He owned the place. What happened next exposed everything, and no one saw it coming. Now, settle in. Because this story doesn't just serve justice, it plates it hot. It was a golden Friday evening in Savannah, Georgia. The streets were alive with the gentle hum of twilight, shop doors creaked open, soft jazz drifted from a nearby rooftop, and the scent of jasmine lingered in the warm southern air. Tourists strolled in linen and loafers, and locals filled the sidewalks like a familiar rhythm. The sun cast long amber streaks across the cobblestones of Broughton Street, painting everything in a buttery glow. And in the heart of that elegance stood Sterling's Table, a high-end restaurant where the napkins were linen, the menus had no prices, and the maitre d's smile was only genuine if you had the right skin tone or last name. When the door opened, the atmosphere didn't shift right away. The wind didn't change, the glasses didn't shatter. No music stopped playing. But something did change. A tall black man stepped in, alone. He wasn't wearing designer labels, no flashy watch, no glittering shoes. His shirt was plain white, crisp and clean. His navy slacks were pressed but modest. A small leather satchel hung over one shoulder, and his shoes, though unbranded, shone with polish and care. There was no loud announcement of his presence, no flashy entrance. But the way he walked, shoulders square, chin forward, stride calm, commanded the kind of space that made people look. Behind the host's stand, Amanda looked up. She wore an elegant black dress and her hair in a tight, styled bun. Her makeup was perfectly contoured, her nails sharp, and on her chest sat a golden name tag, assistant manager, a title she wore like a sword. Her hand paused mid-scroll on the digital reservation tablet. She took one look at the man and gave a half-smile, tight, formal, not the kind that reached the eyes. "Can I help you?" she asked, tone cool, already bracing for what she assumed would be a problem. "Yes," the man said calmly. "Table for one, please." His voice was smooth, even. Not aggressive, not apologetic. Just, steady. He wasn't asking for approval. He was stating a fact. Amanda glanced around the room. Empty tables were scattered across the polished floor, an open booth beneath a warm pendant light, a two-top near the window, an elegant four-seater by the fireplace. But she tapped on her screen, furrowed her brow as if she were solving a complex puzzle, and said, "Most of our tables are reserved tonight." There was no reason to lie. She just didn't like the look of him. "But I do have something," she said with a forced smile. "Back here." She turned and gestured toward the rear of the restaurant, past the kitchen doors, near the restrooms. She didn't wait for him to object. She assumed he wouldn't. And he didn't. "That'll be fine," he said. No complaint. No resistance. But his tone shifted, slightly. Like the click of a lock sliding into place. She led him past glittering chandeliers and polished tables to a corner near a janitor's closet. The table she pointed to was pushed near a wall where the paint had bubbled and peeled from years of steam and neglect. The air carried the faint scent of bleach and old tile. A flickering bulb overhead buzzed weakly. A far cry from the soft lighting bathing the main dining area in amber warmth. He sat quietly. Carefully. Dignified. She handed him the menu with 2 fingers, holding it out as though it might burn her. Then she turned and walked away without another word. He didn't watch her leave. He didn't need to. He'd seen this before. Seated by the kitchen. Given the bad table. Ignored. Watched. Assumed to be a poor tipper. Treated like a burden. But tonight wasn't just another insult. He opened the menu slowly, eyes scanning it with precision. He wasn't looking for luxury. Just something honest. Trout. Asparagus. Herbed potatoes. Unsweetened iced tea. That would be enough. He closed the menu gently and waited. Amanda returned moments later, walking with that sharp, snapping rhythm her heels made on the tile floor. "No appetizer," she said, her tone laced with mockery. He looked up, evenly. "Just the trout with sides. Unsweetened iced tea." She leaned forward slightly, her smile poisonous. "Oh. Fancy." She laughed under her breath. "Trout's like, what, $27? Big night?" He didn't flinch. "I ordered," he said flatly. She grinned wider. "Sure thing. Coming right up. Don't choke when you see the tip line." Then she spun around and walked off. He sat still, hands folded on the table, fingertips tapping gently in rhythm. Tap. 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 Not out of nerves. Out of calculation. Minutes passed. No one came to refill his water. A young waiter passed and met his eyes for half a second, then looked away. The trout arrived eventually, lukewarm, dull, dry. The asparagus looked like it had been boiled to death. The potatoes were smeared onto the plate like leftovers. No garnish. No care. Amanda dropped the plate like it was an afterthought. "Bon appetit," she said with sarcasm thick enough to smear. He didn't thank her. He didn't react. He just picked up his fork and took a bite. One bite. Then set it down. And looked up. He waited until she passed again, then asked quietly, "Is this how this dish is normally served?" She sneered. "For people like you." "Sure. We save the fancy touches for real customers." It was like a slap in the face. But he didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He took a breath, rose from his chair, and walked quietly toward the restroom. He wasn't done. He was just preparing. What she didn't know, what no one in that restaurant yet realized, was that this night wasn't going to end with the bill. Because he hadn't come to eat. He had come to change everything. The restroom sat just beyond the main dining area, a narrow hallway branching off toward the kitchen and wine cellar. Most customers wouldn't notice it, tucked neatly behind a frosted glass divider, but it was well lit, spotless, and always smelled faintly of lavender and eucalyptus. That's where he was headed. Until Amanda's voice cut through the hum of clinking glasses and low music like a school bell slicing silence. "Sir," she called out, sharp and loud, forcing heads to turn. He paused mid-step. Slowly, deliberately, he turned back to face her, eyebrows slightly raised, not in surprise, but in tired expectation. She walked toward him, arms crossed, chin up like a bouncer guarding a VIP rope. "I'm going to have to ask you to stop right there," she said, the faux-polite tone laced with contempt. "I need to use the restroom," he replied, steady. She smirked. "Yeah, no. The main restroom is for customers only." "I am a customer." Amanda gave a short, dry laugh. "Barely. You've been here 30 minutes, spent less than $30, and you're already wandering. Our policy is that guests must spend at least $50 before using the front facilities." He blinked once. "That policy's not posted anywhere." "It doesn't have to be," she replied, shrugging. "It's company policy. You think we let just anyone use our facilities?" The word anyone sat heavy in the air, like a stone dropped in water. He tilted his head slightly, as if double-checking whether he was still in reality. "So you're saying I can't use the restroom because I didn't order enough?" "That's exactly what I'm saying," Amanda chirped. "But lucky for you," she gestured down a side hallway, voice dropping into mock sweetness. "There's a service restroom in the basement. Just go through the back door by the mop sink." For a long second, he said nothing. Not because he was stunned, but because the moment required precise silence. Like a note held on a piano before the song changes key. Then he asked, coolly, do other guests use the mop sink entrance? Or is that just for people like me? Amanda blinked. She wasn't expecting the question. She wasn't prepared to answer it. She scoffed. Don't make this a thing. You people always want to pull that card. I'm telling you the rule. Don't like it? Take it up with someone who cares. He nodded once. Not agreement. Just acknowledgement. Then, without another word, he turned and walked toward the back, disappearing down the dim hallway that led to the basement stairs. Around the restaurant, diners stirred. A woman in pearls whispered to her husband. A man near the bar tilted his head. A server standing near the kitchen froze mid-step. They'd heard it. They'd seen it. The moment she said, "You people," was not subtle. The mop sink entrance, not subtle. Downstairs, the basement bathroom felt like something forgotten by time. The walls were cracked. The floor was concrete, stained from years of leaks and bleach. A rusting pipe dripped into a floor drain. The mirror was cracked, like a jagged line across a face. He washed his hands in silence, watching the faucet sputter like it hadn't been used in days. And when he looked into the broken mirror, the reflection didn't show a man defeated. It showed a man ready. Ready for something that Amanda and the entire staff weren't expecting. Because tonight wasn't about revenge. It was about a reckoning. When he walked back up the stairs and stepped out into the dining room, something was off. Wrong. His table was gone. Not just empty. Not cleared. Gone. The space where it had been was empty now, wiped down to gleam like no one had ever sat there. A different waitress, not Amanda, was now cleaning another nearby table. She looked up, startled when she saw him standing still in front of the blank floor. He took a step closer, his voice low. "Where's my table?" She blinked. "Oh. I think they cleared it. Someone said you left." "I was gone for 4 minutes," he replied, voice clipped. "Just 4. She didn't answer. Amanda emerged from behind the host podium like she had been waiting for him. "There you are," she said with a bright, fake smile. "We thought you'd taken off." "You cleared my table," he said. She shrugged. "We didn't know how long you'd be down there. We assumed you, left." "You watched me walk to the back," he said calmly, but now every word was heavier. "You knew I was coming back." Amanda scoffed. "Look, I'm not keeping track of every single customer's bathroom schedule. You left. We cleaned up. If you have a problem, take it up with the manager." "Oh, wait, he's not here tonight." Wrong answer. Something shifted in his gaze. Like a quiet storm forming behind still waters. "You made me eat garbage. You mocked me over a restroom. Then you threw away my food and pretended I left." "God, you're being dramatic," she snapped, louder now. Diners were watching. It was a table. A meal. Boo-hoo. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was loaded. He reached calmly into his satchel and pulled out a thin black folder. Amanda rolled her eyes. "What is that? A complaint letter? Yelp review?" He opened it, slow and smooth. "This," he said, unfolding a printed page, "is the signed ownership agreement." Amanda froze. He stepped forward, offering the page like a knife. "I bought this location 2 months ago. The entire chain. Tonight was my first visit, unannounced. To see how we treat our guests." The paper trembled in her fingers. And so did she. Amanda's face drained of color, her tan complexion now pale with confusion and dawning fear. Her lips moved, but no sound came out at first, just a breath caught between panic and disbelief. She looked down at the paper in her hands, then back up at him. "You're lying," she whispered. He didn't blink. Am I? Her hands trembled slightly as she scanned the page again, legal letterhead, inked signatures, stamped seal. All real. All official. All undeniable. This is some kind of setup, she finally stammered, her voice louder now. You're tricking me. You came in here looking like a... She stopped herself, too late. Like what? He said, his voice cutting through the dining room like a hot wire through butter. Say it. Like someone who couldn't possibly own the building you work in. Like someone who didn't deserve eye contact, or a hot meal, or a clean table. Like someone who needed to earn your respect. Amanda opened her mouth, but all that came out was silence. And now everyone was watching. The room had gone still. Forks paused mid-air. Conversation ceased mid-sentence. Even the music from the speakers had taken on a strange, tense hush. Across the floor, a young server cautiously stepped forward, eyes wide. I saw what happened, she said quietly, addressing no one in particular. I think we all did. From another corner, an older man with white hair and a linen blazer added, she told him to use the mop sink restroom. I heard it. A woman beside him nodded, her expression hard. So did I. She laughed when he walked away. Amanda's eyes darted from face to face. Each one now looking not at her, but through her. Desperate, she turned toward the kitchen. Todd, she called, her voice cracking. Todd, can we talk for a second? The side office door opened and Todd, the general manager, stepped out, summoned earlier by a whisper from a passing server. He had a towel thrown over one shoulder and an open laptop tucked beneath one arm. What's going on? He asked, voice cautious but firm, eyes already shifting to the man standing calmly at the center of it all. The man handed him the same document Amanda had held only seconds ago. Todd glanced down, read it, and froze. He looked up slowly. Sir, is this legit? It is, the man said quietly. My name is Darren Reed. The ink on that contract is less than 12 hours old. Amanda took a step forward, her voice shrill. Todd, he set me up. He came in here dressed like some regular walk-in. He didn't announce anything. Todd cut her off sharply. Amanda. Stop. But. Just stop, he said, louder this time. This isn't about how he looked. This is about how you acted. A wave of shame rippled across Amanda's face, but it was too late. The truth had already slipped out of her mouth, and everyone had heard it. Todd turned back to Darren, swallowing hard. Sir, I had no idea. If I had known. Darren raised a hand. That's just it. You shouldn't have to know. I didn't come in here for special treatment. I came in to see how you treat strangers, because how you treat a stranger says everything about your standard. He glanced around the room, letting his words settle. Tonight, your standard failed. No one moved. Amanda's hands dropped to her sides, and the contract slipped from her fingers to the floor with a soft flutter. You're firing me, she said, more a statement than a question, eyes brimming now with something that almost resembled tears. Todd looked her dead in the eyes. Take off your name tag. You can't. I can. And I just did. She hesitated, one hand going to her chest, fingers trembling. When she unclipped the tag, it no longer looked like a symbol of power. It looked like a weight she just realized was dragging her down. She turned, half expecting someone to stand up for her. No one did. No one said a word. Even the young man in the tailored blazer, who earlier had smirked when Darren walked by, now looked away, ashamed. Amanda stormed toward the exit, heels echoing like thunderclaps in a room full of whispers. As the door swung shut behind her, a single pair of hands clapped. Then another. And another. It wasn't a cheer. It was a release. Applause not for revenge, but for restoration. For quiet dignity that didn't bend. Darren didn't bow. He didn't wave. He just stood there, unmoved, grounded, his presence still commanding without saying a word. Todd turned back to him, swallowing hard. "Sir, I'll comp your meal, of course, Anne. I can't express how sorry I am." Darren shook his head. "I didn't come here for a free meal. What can we do?" Todd asked. "Start over," Darren said. "From the top. For every guest who walks through that door." Todd nodded solemnly. And Darren walked back to the very same table Amanda had once banished him to, the corner by the restroom, now perfectly cleaned, candle lit, cloth napkin folded just so. But this time, it was more than a table. It was a statement. And he had just reclaimed it. The dining room was different now. It wasn't the lights or the temperature or the food, those remained the same. But something in the atmosphere had changed. The air felt thicker, the silence deeper, the eyes more attentive. Every server moved with heightened awareness, every guest leaned just a bit closer to the drama still settling over the room like dust after an explosion. Darren sat back down. Same seat. Same plate, though fresh this time. A different server approached now, nervous, polite, respectful. "Mr. Reed," she said softly, setting down a new trout entree, hot this time, garnished beautifully, colors vivid, plate gleaming. "Your food." "Compliments of the staff." Darren gave a small nod. "Thank you." She lingered a moment longer than necessary, as if wanting to say something else, then turned and quietly disappeared behind the bar. Todd remained standing to the side, awkward, clutching his towel like a lifeline. "We're going to review everything," he said, almost in a whisper. "Staff training, policy enforcement, even the way we greet people at the door. What happened tonight, it's not who we want to be." Darren didn't look at him. He was staring at the fork in his hand, turning it slowly between his fingers. "It is who you are," he said quietly. "At least, who you were." Todd winced. "But," Darren continued, his voice steady, "what matters is what you do tomorrow." Todd exhaled, like he'd been holding his breath since Amanda was escorted out. "We'll get it right," he said. "I promise." Darren finally looked up and met his eyes. "Don't promise me. Prove it to the next man who walks in here in a plain white shirt." Todd nodded and stepped away. Around the room, eyes slowly turned back to their own tables. Forks returned to plates. Murmurs resumed, softer now, cautious. But the tension hadn't vanished, it had simply settled into the bones of the place, like a memory that wouldn't quite let go. At the far table near the window, a teenager who'd been filming discreetly since Amanda's confrontation now sat, eyes glued to his phone. He whispered something to his mother, who gave him a scolding look but didn't stop him. He tapped the screen again. Upload complete. Outside the restaurant, the first comments began to roll in. "This can't be real. This man is a king. Calm, powerful, precise. Fired her on the spot. I'm screaming. The mop sink part. No. Just no." His silence was loud. Who else watched this 5 times already? Within 20 minutes, the clip had 30,000 views. By the time Darren finished his plate, it had crossed 100,000. Inside Sterling's, Darren sat quietly, sipping his freshly poured tea. No fanfare, no speech, no selfie. Just peace. The same waitress returned, this time with a fresh dessert tray, chocolate tart, lemon meringue, brulee so perfect it looked airbrushed. "On the house," she said gently. "Anne, thank you." He gave her a small smile. "For what?" "For not walking out." He looked down at the tray. Then back up. "Some things," he said, "are worth sitting through." She left the dessert tray behind. At the host podium, Todd stared at the restaurant's main security monitor. The footage had already been downloaded. He tapped to rewind, to rewatch Amanda's smirk as she blocked the restroom, her laughter as Darren turned away. His fingers trembled slightly as he picked up the phone to call corporate. A voice on the other end answered. Corporate dining, HR. We had an incident, Todd said. Owner was present. Unrecognized. Staff made decisions. He has video. And so do the guests. There was a long pause. How bad? Todd closed his eyes. Viral. A beat of silence. We'll coordinate with comms, the voice replied. Legal will get involved. Did the owner say what he wants to do next? Todd looked up across the dining room. Darren was still sitting alone, finishing a spoonful of brulee, as composed as he had been from the moment he walked in. Todd shook his head slowly. No. But I don't think he wants blood. I think he wants standards. The call ended. And outside the walls of Sterling's table, Savannah was buzzing. Phones lit up. A local blog reposted the clip under the title. Savannah waitress fires herself in real time after humiliating quiet black customer. Who turns out to be her boss? Another caption read. The trout that ended a career. By midnight, the video had over 1 million views. Amanda's name wasn't included, yet. But in some versions of the footage, her face was unblurred. Online detectives were already digging. People weren't just watching. They were choosing sides. And unlike in the past, this time, silence wasn't in style. By morning, the story had outgrown the restaurant. It spread from Savannah's streets to trending tabs on social media. TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere you looked, there was a screenshot of the contract, a freeze frame of Amanda's smirk, or a clip of Darren calmly revealing who he really was. Some called it a masterclass in restraint. Others labeled it the quietest power move they'd ever seen. And now, every Sterling's location was feeling the aftershock. Corporate scrambled to contain the damage. They issued a vague press statement about an unfortunate misunderstanding at one of our properties and ongoing diversity training initiatives. But that wasn't enough. People weren't interested in blanket apologies. They wanted names. They wanted consequences. And Darren? He still hadn't said a word publicly. He didn't tweet. He didn't post. He didn't ride the wave. Instead, just before noon the following day, he returned. Same shirt. Same satchel. Same quiet stride. He walked through the front doors of Sterling's table like a man entering his living room. This time, there was no Amanda to greet him, just Todd, the general manager, standing in a crisp black jacket and tie, waiting nervously with a clipboard and a deep look of remorse in his eyes. Mr. Reed, Todd said, voice tight. Welcome back. Darren nodded. Let's talk. They walked through the dining room, passing employees who straightened up like soldiers during inspection. Whispers followed them, but no one spoke out loud. Darren wasn't just the owner now, he was the story. Todd led him to the back office. Inside, reports were laid out on the desk. Incident summaries. Staff testimonies. Screen captures from the footage. Social media analytics. A copy of the policy manual. Darren flipped through the paperwork without comment. I've already fired Amanda, Todd said. We're issuing a company-wide training overhaul. We're rewriting parts of the manual to include mandatory protocol on implicit bias. I've even called in outside consultants. Darren closed the folder. What's the point, he asked, if the moment I take off this shirt, the training disappears? Todd swallowed hard. We want to be better. Truly. Then prove it. I will. No, Darren said, more firmly this time. We will. Todd looked up. I'm not here to punish people, Darren said. But this place? This name? My name is on it now. And it's going to mean something. Todd nodded quickly. What would you like us to do next? Darren tapped the folder. Start with the front door. Change how people are greeted. Change where they sit. Every guest deserves dignity. That means no mop sink policies. No side glances. No more deciding someone's value by their shoes. Todd scribbled notes. We'll retrain, he said. We'll start today. Darren stood. Then I'll be back tomorrow. And the next day. Until every one of you forgets the name Amanda, and remembers what respect looks like. He didn't wait for applause. He didn't want fanfare. He left the office, walked past the bar, and sat again at the same table, his table. Only this time, the lighting was warm. The chair was stable. The air no longer smelled of bleach. There was a fresh candle lit, a folded napkin, and silverware arranged perfectly. A different hostess approached him this time. She bowed her head slightly and said, "Welcome, Mr. Reed. May I bring you your usual?" Darren smiled faintly. "Yes. The trout." She nodded and vanished into the kitchen. Word had spread. Staff across the city began whispering his name not in fear, but in respect. Servers at other Sterling's locations texted each other, "He showed up again. He's not yelling. That's scarier. Dude changed the whole atmosphere just by walking in." And meanwhile, the video kept climbing. By late afternoon, it was picked up by a national news outlet. They requested interviews. Darren declined every one. He didn't want to be the face of a movement. He didn't want to be a viral headline. He wanted people to be better. And quietly, powerfully, they began to listen. Amanda, meanwhile, wasn't hard to find. Someone had dug up her full name, linked it to old social media posts, and before the end of the day, she was being interviewed on a live Instagram video, defensive, tearful, and clumsy. "I didn't know he owned the place," she said. "I wouldn't have treated him like that if I'd known." That one sentence sealed her fate. Because it was never supposed to be about ownership. It was supposed to be about decency. The comments section lit up. "You shouldn't have to know who someone is to treat them like a human." She said it out loud. "Girl, you just don't get it." The internet wasn't interested in her excuses. But Darren? Darren had become something else entirely. Not a celebrity. Not a victim. But a mirror. One people couldn't stop looking into, and questioning what they saw. By the end of the week, Sterling's table wasn't just a restaurant, it was a symbol. People didn't come just for the trout or the wine. They came to sit where he had sat. To meet the man who didn't raise his voice, who didn't post a rant, who didn't call for riots or revenge, just standards. Quiet. Unshakable. Standards. A local teacher brought her class to sit near the table. A church group held a breakfast meeting there to talk about dignity and grace. A former mayor came in, paid full price, and asked the staff to tell him the full story, not the headline, the truth. The staff changed. Todd rewrote onboarding from scratch. He started each shift with a 5-minute respect reset, a moment to remind every employee what this place stood for now. New signs were added to the host stand. Every guest deserves dignity, without question, without exception. But Darren didn't stop there. He visited other locations. Unannounced. He would walk in wearing that same plain white shirt. No watch. No fanfare. He would order something simple and watch how the staff behaved, not just toward him, but toward the single mom with 2 kids. The older couple who ordered water only. The delivery guy who came in to use the restroom. He didn't fire people quickly. But when he did, it was never out of anger. It was out of disappointment. And that stung worse. The viral video continued gaining traction. By now, it had over 12 million views. Commentators from every corner of the internet had weighed in. Activists called it poetic justice. Business leaders called it a masterclass in leadership. Even a few celebrities reshared the clip, one tweeting, "We need more men like this. Less rage, more resolve." But Darren hadn't said a single word to the press. Not until the reporter from a local black-owned publication approached him in person, respectfully, after he finished a quiet lunch. "Mr. Reed," she said softly, "we're not looking for a viral quote. We just want to know why you didn't leave. Why you stayed. Why you didn't just buy the building and fire everyone behind the scenes." He looked up, finished his tea, and set the glass down. "I've left places like that my whole life," he said. "And nothing changed." She tilted her head. "So this time?" "This time," he said, "I stayed seated. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing a black man can do, is not walk away. It's to make them see us, without giving them a reason to look away." She nodded slowly. "May I quote you on that?" He gave her a small nod. "You may." The quote made the front page. The headline read. He didn't raise his voice. He raised the bar. And now, across cities Darren had never even visited, other restaurants began posting signs on their restroom doors. "No purchase necessary. Human dignity is free." Corporate had no choice but to adopt his standards company-wide. The policy Darren inspired became known internally as the Reed Clause, a directive ensuring no customer, employee, or vendor could be denied service, respect, or access based on perceived status. Ironically, Amanda's name never appeared in the policy. But she remained the ghost behind it, the cautionary tale whispered during new employee training sessions. As for Amanda herself, she went offline. Deleted every account. In one unguarded email leaked months later, she had written to a friend. "I wish I had just let him use the restroom. I wish I'd smiled instead of judged. That moment ruined my career, and he didn't even have to say a word to do it." But Darren? Darren said nothing. He just kept showing up. Same calm eyes. Same quiet strength. And then one evening, 3 weeks after the incident, something new appeared near the table where it all began. A small brass plaque, about the size of a napkin holder, mounted into the corner of the wooden panel. It didn't mention a name. It didn't mention a date. It simply read. "Every guest deserves dignity, without question, without exception." People took photos. They asked about it. And the staff would simply point toward Darren's usual table and say, "That's his story. And now, it's ours too." It was a quiet Thursday evening when a young couple walked into Sterling's table, hand in hand. They didn't look wealthy, faded jeans, thrifted jackets, the man's shoes worn from long days. The hostess glanced at the waitlist, then at them, and without hesitation smiled wide and said, "Right this way." She led them straight to the window table. Fresh candles. Soft light. No judgment. A few feet away, Darren Reed sat in his usual seat. Same plain shirt. Same satchel at his side. But this time, something was different. His eyes, always calm and guarded, carried a softness now. Not exhaustion. Not caution. Pride. He watched the staff move with purpose. Respect was no longer forced, it was embedded. The lesson had stuck. Todd approached him with a small envelope. "From the team," he said quietly. Darren opened it. Inside was a handwritten card. It read. "You didn't just change the restaurant. You changed us. Thank you for not yelling. Thank you for staying seated." Beneath the message were 19 signatures, servers, hosts, cooks, even the dishwasher named Louise who had quietly clapped that night when Amanda walked out. Darren placed the card gently back in the envelope. "You did the work," he said to Todd. "I just lit the match." Todd smiled. "You lit it without burning the place down. That's the difference." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Todd added, "We're expanding the read clause to all sister properties. Chicago, LA, New York. It'll be part of national onboarding." Darren nodded once. But just as he was about to stand, a familiar voice piped up from across the dining room. "Excuse me, sir." It was the older woman with silver hair who had been there that night. She had seen it all, the slights, the confrontation, the shift. She now stood beside his table, hand resting gently on the chair in front of her. "I don't want to interrupt," she said, "but I wanted to thank you for showing us something we forgot, that grace still has power." Darren's expression softened. "Thank you," he replied. "But it's not about grace. It's about what we accept. I just decided. I wasn't accepting less anymore." Her eyes watered, just slightly. "Well, we won't either." As she returned to her table, Darren finally stood. This time, when he walked through the restaurant, people didn't avoid his gaze. They nodded. Tipped their heads. One waiter mouthed a simple thank you. He paused at the exit. Took one last look. Not at the room. Not at the food. At the plaque. He stepped outside into the Savannah air, cooler now, the breeze crisp with spring. He didn't look back. Because he didn't need to. Justice hadn't come from a courtroom, or a lawyer, or a hashtag. It had come from one man, in one chair, refusing to be erased. Not through anger. Through expectation. And he knew now, wherever he went next, the standard would follow. Because sometimes the most radical act is to sit down, and quietly not leave. At True Echo, we believe that power doesn't always roar, it often whispers. Tonight's story reminds us that you don't need to shout to be heard, and you don't need to fight to win. Sometimes, you just need to stay seated and let your presence speak for itself. As Darren Reed once said, "Sometimes the most powerful thing a black man can do, is not walk away." If this story moved you, like this video, subscribe for more true, powerful stories, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded, dignity isn't earned, it's owed. Drop a comment below. What would you have done in Darren's shoes?